Welcome, everyone. I'm Jeffrey Goodman, Director of Marketing and Development for the YMCA of Northwest Louisiana, and we're here at 318 Latino Studios for Shreveport-Bossier, my city, my community, my home. And we're going to have a fascinating discussion today. Our guest is Loreli Lopez. Loreli,
Yes,
thanks for
hi.
being here.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Of course. I appreciate you making the time. So let's start today with just some family history.
Okay.
Tell me, if you could, a little about your parents' background and when and how you ended up in Shreveport-Bossier.
Oh, wow. That's a long story, but it's an interesting story because there's so many different things that took place. So my mother was actually born in Havana, Cuba. She was the oldest of 4 children, of course, to my grandparents. As we know, with the history of Cuba, communism and Castro arrived, and so they were very fortunate to be able to leave Cuba in 1962. So my mom was about almost 16 years old when she left, and they were able to come, thankfully, as a family together. They were flown into Miami, and a few months later, they were sent to Dallas, Texas. And so, and it's funny.
Why were they sent to Dallas?
Because they start saying there's too many Cubans in Miami. So they started sending Cubans to other places, and Dallas was one of them. And so it's funny because anybody who's been to Miami today, they know there's a lot of Cubans in Miami. So they tried to keep Miami to themselves, but it just didn't happen. But that is how my mother's family ended up in Dallas, Texas, where I was born. And so I was raised very much in the Cuban culture because my grandfather lived with us. And he sadly passed away when I was 16. So he was in my childhood, went to church with him, all of my aunts and uncles, all his siblings. The majority were in Dallas, Texas, a lot of cousins, a lot of Cubans. So I was very fortunate to grow up in that culture and eat Cuban food every day. So a lot of people are shocked when I say I don't like spicy food. It's because we didn't eat spicy food. We didn't grow up, and that's a very different thing than Mexican food. But on the other hand, my dad was born in Texas. So he's what we call Tejano or Chicano, a Mexican-American background. Unfortunately,
His parents were his parents from...
They were born in Texas also.
His parents were.
So I've been trying to do the family history on his side. And I believe they left Mexico in the late 1800s, where they crossed to work as agricultural workers. But they were from northern Mexico. And so that's been very interesting. It's been difficult because, unfortunately, my father's mother, my grandmother, she got very sick with tuberculosis. And so she had 8 children, and they ended up going into foster care, into the orphanage. So he was the oldest. And he has so many stories about that, about living through segregation in Texas. He was actually in an orphanage only for Mexican children, which I look a lot like my father, and a lot of people tell me I don't even look Mexican. So there's a lot of interesting history there. But so he lived through the segregation of that time in Texas, and where they were physically abused for speaking Spanish and whatnot. And so
let me interrupt 1 second. When you say segregation, that's so interesting, because when you say segregation, so most people in America, when they hear segregation, they purely think white, black. But when you're saying segregation, you're saying segregation of whites and Hispanics.
Yes. And so that's what's interesting, is because even though he was born in Texas, his mother was born in Texas, they were Texan, they were viewed as Mexican. And yes, they still spoke Spanish and had their culture, but they were viewed as Mexican, and the signs, they still said, no blacks, no Mexicans, and so a lot of people don't realize that.
I didn't realize that.
Oh, yeah. So he grew up with that segregation. I mean, even the children's home, which was owned by the Baptist Church, and they still own and do a lot of orphanage work. It was for Mexican children. It had that in the title, Mexican Children's Home. And he told me about, they had segregated proms in high school. He went to San Angelo High School, and he grew up in Waco. He moved around a lot because of the situation with his sick mother. And so those two different sides of history with my parents had a lot of influence on me, and they still do. and hopefully on the influence of my children so they can see, how lucky we are and where we came from. So I have those two different cultures and a very Texas culture because I grew up in Dallas, Texas. I went to
Two questions.
Yes.
One, so your dad and all his siblings remained in the same home? They remained together?
Oh, no. They were separated. I've talked to my aunts. He has 3 sisters. They didn't even realize they were sisters till later. And, they knew they had these older brothers, but they didn't really know them because they separate them into cottages. But luckily, they were able to keep in touch. And as they, of course, became teenagers, there was periods of times where he was actually able to be their guardian when he was about 17 years old. So they were able to still be close. And of course, when they got out of the system, they're still very close.
And how did you ultimately make the transition from Dallas to Shreveport?
So I grew up in Dallas. I went to Southern Methodist University, studied business and accounting. I have my bachelor's in business, and then I got a master's in accounting. And I thought I was going to have this career as a CPA, and I knew I wanted to have my own business, but I just didn't know how. And I always kind of liked remodeling and construction, and I think that was just being like the little girl that was always at Home Depot with her dad, So I have a lot of those memories.
What did he do, by the way?
My dad was actually a machinist, so he actually worked at Raytheon and made missiles for the Defense Department. So he had a great job because he was very mechanically inclined, just naturally in his brain. So he's always very good at building or remodeling or, just doing stuff with his hands. So he was always tinkering with things. And so I kind of grew up with that. And, a lot of people kind of have that history too, like, going to Home Depot with your Mexican dad, or you have to help him do this or help him do that. And so I always enjoyed that with him.
And so how did you ultimately get here?
So my boyfriend in high school, we actually met in Spanish class, which is funny. He's from Mexico, and he came around 12 years old, and we met in high school. And, you're in high school and you don't think this or that's going to happen, but it did. And I went to college, and while I was in college, he moved to Bossier City, to Shreveport with his brothers, and started working in framing, working in the construction industry here. And back then, that was around 2004, 2005-ish. There wasn't a large Hispanic population, Mexican, El Salvador, any really going on, or especially doing construction. So him and his brothers came, and they started working in a crew, and it was going really well, And I was in college, and he said, I'm just going to be here a couple years, make money and save, and, go back to Texas. Well, you just kind of get used to working on your own, working for yourself. It's hard to go back to working for somebody. And even at his young age of, 20 years old, he couldn't do it. And so it was like by the time I graduated, not only with the bachelor's and the master's, he was still here. So I said, well, let me just try to apply for a job as an accountant because we can work anywhere. And I'll just see what happens. So kind of on a whim, I got a job here. And tell my parents, hey, I'm leaving to Louisiana, and I'll just see if it works out with my high school boyfriend. And I mean, of course, we were long distance, but hey, it worked out, So we've been married 16 years, and I've been in Louisiana since 2008.
Wow.
And so, yeah.
All right. So, and this connects to your high school boyfriend, now husband, fast forward. So fast forward, you're the vice president and owner of PPT Incorporated. So my question around that is just, talk to me about how the business got started, and some of the different services you offer today.
Okay, great. And so my husband's background, his family was always in construction, framing, and some people in concrete. And so he was in framing first with his siblings, and then he decided, I want to do concrete. So he started doing small concrete jobs. And then when I got here, like, okay, he's like, I want to, make a business, and let's do it. And so we did, and we were very fortunate. And I mean, to start a business, you go from basically him, his dad, and one guy to, grow over the years. And that's basically what we did. And, so we knew a lot of great builders in town, a lot of people who gave us a chance when, he was 21-year-old kid, like, hey, I want to pour concrete for you. And he was kind of a rookie in that sense with concrete, at least, So we started Black Hawk Concrete in 2009, and we just grew and grew and grew and got our contacts, and everything was going well. And then in 2018, we had the opportunity to purchase PPT from the Patridge family, who we had kind of already been working with, like as a sub, and they were our mentors for sure.
What's PPT stand for?
It stands for Patridge Post Tension.
Okay.
So PPT was founded in 1979 by David and Sue Patridge.
Okay.
And so we are a very established company, and the owners, pretty much selected us to continue the company. And we're very honored for that. And so we took over in 2018. We purchased it from them, and it's been going really well. So PPT started as a post-tension company, and post-tension is reinforcement, concrete reinforcement. A lot of people think about rebar, and they know rebar, and they're like, oh, okay. But post-tension is actually what goes in every slab in this area. There's a little bit of rebar, but it's 99% post-tension. And so post-tension is basically pre-stressed cable. And these cables also in high rises and bridges, and it's what keeps everything tight and reinforced because it's stressed. So that's mainly how it got started, was post-tension, and we are a manufacturer of post-tension. So we actually make it here just down the street in Shreveport. We actually manufacture it. And
Where's your plant?
It's on Hahn Avenue.
Okay.
Yeah, our plant is on
Kind of near Farmers Seafood?
Yes, right down the street from Farmers. Just you could walk there if you wanted to. So we manufacture the post-tension, and then we fabricate the post-tension, which means we cut it to size. So for your specific house, you wanted a window here, you wanted the garage like this, we cut it exactly to fit your house. And so it's very precise because it goes in the slab before the concrete's poured. So in conjunction to that, we design the foundation plans, and that says, how the cable goes this way or that way, and all the strength that it needs with the engineers. And then we also offer piers. So like your home in Providence, you have piers. You have helical piers.
Yeah, I will tell everyone out there before we started. So my wife and I live in Providence. We built our house in 2017. And actually, Loreli and I have never met before today, but I knew her name, and I definitely knew her company's name because they were the company that poured our foundation. Yes. And many of the foundations in Providence and across Shreveport-Bossier.
Yes. And so helical piers are another way of reinforcement for the soil that moves. And we have a lot of different soil types here in our area, but especially in South Shreveport, the soil is going up and down, and so the helical piers are an additional reinforcement to tie it down. And they usually go about 10 feet into the ground. And helical piers look like really big screws. They have like a helix on them, and we drill them 10 feet down to torque. So sometimes they go 50 feet to torque, whatever it torques to get tight enough. And then we also do concrete piers, which a lot of is, more just a simple pier that you fill with concrete and rebar. Simple, but helicals are easier because you just screw in, into the ground. We also provide pump trucks. So that's to get concrete from point A to point B up to 100 feet away. You probably see the big booms. And so that's our pump truck division. And then we also have our turnkey division, which a lot of builders like to do just turnkey. Like they hire us and we do everything from taking down trees to bringing in dirt to the pad to, of course, the foundation. And we do a lot of commercial work in that division too. We have a lot of divisions going on.
It's a great success story, a wonderful company that is doing extraordinary work. So congratulations.
Thank you so much. And a big part of our success of starting with my family history and, having my mother's family come to the United States with literally just the clothes on their back, because that's all the government allowed them to bring. No money, no jewelry, no valuables. They literally took it away from you at the airport. And so coming from that background and my father's background, it was always instilled in us, like, you've got to go to school, you've got to work hard, you've got to make the straight A's. And then, combining my husband's background, you got to be a hard worker. You got to always be up early and working and giving 110%. It is really nice to have found this success. But it's also important for me to not forget that, and to be able to give back to the next group of people coming up. And so
I wasn't going to ask you this question, but Bryant and I have actually talked about this in the past. And as you're saying it, I'm thinking about it. So how do you it's, clearly like first generation people, and you're not necessarily first generation by definition, but in general, first generation people are very driven and driven to succeed and work very hard and are very proud of their success and very deserving of their success. And often what we see happen is the second generation who receives this and didn't have to work for it, don't necessarily have the same work ethic, don't necessarily have the same character traits that their parents had that put them in this position. So how do you, as a parent who has created this extraordinary thing from nothing, how do you ensure that that continues for generations to come and that they understand what it took to make this happen and preserve that moving forward?
That's the hardest question in my life. My children are about to be 15 and 13, so a very important time, teenagers. Since they've been small, they've always gone to work with me. They go to the office, they go to the job sites. I used to also flip houses for fun, and we like to build and have a lot of real estate as well. So they're always with us. And so that's one thing, I think. Like, my daughter knows how to change out light fixtures. They know, I taught them, look, we've got to change out these electrical plugs. Like, this is how you do it. Like, let's go. My son right now, we got him mowing properties, and we're trying our best to get them to be active and be little entrepreneurs and kind of have that mentality, but just to work hard. But it is difficult because they live a lifestyle that we could have never probably dreamed of, them living. But we're doing our best, and we try to take them back to Mexico and back to see my husband's family and that lifestyle and everything, so they can realize where they came from, and especially my son spends a lot of time. Well, they both spend a lot of time with their grandparents, but it's been difficult. And to be honest, especially in today's political climate, and them having other influences of people and friends and whatnot. And I used to not want to talk to my kids about politics, but now I've realized I've got to, because they don't, it's tricky. It's very tricky. So, because my son was like, well, this isn't going to affect me. I'm a teenager and people say I don't look Mexican and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, but you are. I gave you 4 names for a reason, And so it is very tricky, but we're trying our best, and only time will tell, to be honest. Ask me in 40 years.
10, maybe.
Okay, 10. Hopefully they'll be good.
I should know this, but what is the current political situation in terms of Cuba? Like, can your family return there? Can you take your kids there? What is the current situation as an American going to Cuba?
So sadly, I've never stepped foot on the island, and it's like it's such a pain in my heart for that. My mother was able to return 3 times. And so because she was born there, she does have to get permission and a visa from Cuba because they view her as a traitor for leaving the country. But we did have a lot of family still there. And
when she left initially, she left by plane or left on boat?
By plane. Okay. She was on the Kennedy Freedom flights.
Okay.
Where Kennedy said, if you want to get out, let's go. Okay. And so they were very lucky to get on those flights.
Okay.
Some Cubans can go back. It changes so often. I mean, we had cruise ships go into Cuba, and then that was ended, and then you could go through Mexico. Then you could go straight from Dallas. So it changes every year, it really does. And I think recently they just cut it off again. It was on one of the new prohibited travel countries with Iran and so it's just always changing. But I unfortunately haven't gone there, and I'm kind of nervous to go there because I think I would feel a lot of guilt to see how they're living, and that we live totally different. And I had a cousin just go there this summer, and she came back and said, there's electricity only 3 hours a day. Every day what they do is spend time in line to try to find food. So it's a very dire situation. It really is.
Wow. All right, we're gonna shift for a second. Okay. You're the chair of scholarship for the Hispanic Heritage Association of Northwest Louisiana. I want to speak about your important involvement and work with the association. So talk to me, if you could, about the scholarship program you've helped oversee these last several years.
Yeah, so we're on our third year. And I'm just so honored and lucky that Vita was able to support us, and she had created this new organization.
Vita Reiner, we're in Vita's studio. Her son Bryant is behind the camera filming us. So shout out to Vita and Bryant.
Yeah, so we used to have a scholarship program under LULAC, and that was many, many years ago. And I think 2010-ish. We had a good few years running that, and I became the chair of that committee because education is very important to me. Unfortunately, that organization dissolved with people moving off and whatnot. And so it was always kind of in the back of my mind about the scholarships. Well, I kind of didn't think about it, to be honest. And then I had parents come up to me and say, hey, my son, this or that, we really want to study. Are you doing scholarships still?
And are these scholarships for elementary age, middle school age, high school age, college?
College.
Okay, all college. Okay.
All college. So it's for high school seniors and any students currently in college.
Okay.
And so I was like, there's people remember this. It's been 10 years or whatnot, and people remember that we had scholarships, and they're coming to me like, hey. And so I talked to Everardo Resendez, who was also on the committee with me in LULAC, and I told him, and I was like, I think we need to do something about this. And so we were like, okay, who's who, Vita is. And so I set up a lunch, and it's like, hey, this is what I really want to do. I would love your support and your assistance. I said, but I can do it, And so she said, sure. And so that was just the beginning of the greatness. And
so tell me some about how it works and you told me who it's for, but just how it works and how much money and how many students you're granting scholarships to, where the money comes from, and all those things. Okay.
So our goal, I think our initial goal was like $5,000 the first year. Well, we ended up raising $15,000. And so along with PPT and builder supply, PLS rentals, midstream supply, we have State Farm. We have so many local owned businesses that I was able to contact as a business owner and say, hey, this is my idea and I'd love your help. And so I was very blessed that they said, okay, yeah, let's do it. Let's help you. And so we were able to raise $15,000 the first year and the second year. And this is our third year. And I've kind of increased the goal to $20,000. And why I've increased it to $20,000 is because we have 23 applicants right now. And these are all students that are here in our local area, Northwest Louisiana area.
How do they apply?
It's a very simple application. It's on our website. We put it through social media, word of mouth. I'm kind of that crazy lady. Like if I see a student at Starbucks, I'm like, hey, do you want to apply to this? Tell your friends, tell the school counselors. And so it just kind of gets out there as best we can. And
it's purely for Hispanic students.
Purely for Hispanic students and pursuing higher education. And the money goes directly to the student. And so that way, if they need books or laptop or tuition, whatever they need, it can go directly to them.
And it's $1,000 per student? Is that kind of the way it works? Okay.
Yes, it's $1,000 per student. We did have some students that were outstanding. We gave a little bit more, but it just really depends on the donations that come in. And every year we've been giving away the scholarships at our annual event. So this year will be at the Noche de Gala at the Sam's Town in October. So it's also really fun is to be able to invite the students and usually a parent or two, or if they want to invite the whole family, to come and see them be presented with this honor.
Is it too late now for 2025 to get in the consideration pool?
Yeah, so we just closed the applications on July 31st.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you'll do it again for next year.
We'll do it every year.
And for people who are listening to this and interested, keep your eyes out for Hispanic Heritage Association announcements and make sure you get on their radar and apply in time for 2026.
So I usually tell people, follow our Facebook page because we'll always have updates and whatnot. And we usually release the application around April, May, and then it closes in July. And it's a very simple application. It's just one page of information, one essay, and then your transcript. So it's just 3 pieces of paper. In the essay, we really want to get to know you. What are your goals? What was your family like? And that really helps us just get to know our students. And it's been really enjoyable now to see, because on our committee, so I have other members of the committee, I have past winners of our LULAC scholarship. So 2 of the young ladies, Samantha and Jasmine, are on the committee. And they were LULAC winners, 10 years ago. And now they're actually both registered nurses, and they're doing amazing. And I was like, building this committee, I was like, I need to bring those students back. We have to make the full circle. We have to keep going and going. And so it's been really great. And even some of the other past scholarship donors, like when they graduate, it's a great honor and pride to see them doing well in life.
Well, it's wonderful work, and I commend you for making that happen and kind of taking the lead and making sure that continues and continues to grow. It's so important. Yes. You talked a little bit about this, but I want you now, talk to me a little bit about how you've seen the local Hispanic community evolve and change over the many years since you first arrived in Shreveport-Bossier.
It was a little bit of a culture shock to me, to be honest. Coming from Dallas, where we have such a large Hispanic population, so many countries represented, and then coming here and
Tell me again the year you first got here.
2008.
Okay, yeah. So we're 17. I think.
Yeah, 17 years.
17 years removed from when you first. Okay.
It was like when I saw somebody in Walmart, I was like, I got to go say hi to them, and then it sounds horrible, but seeing other people besides Hispanic work construction or work in landscaping, I had never seen that before, to be honest. I had never seen where hay come from, to be honest with you, too.
So you're saying in Texas, everyone working construction was Hispanic.
Yes.
That was what your lens.
Yeah, that was what I was used to seeing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I never seen hay before from a big city, and I never seen the true darkness here.
Hay, like bales of hay.
Yeah, like bales of hay. That blew my mind. So it's just a variety of things.
Because you came from such an urban
because I came from such an urban area, and even the darkness. Dallas is so lit up 24/7, and so seeing darkness here really kind of scared me. I'm like, am I in a scary movie right now? But I love it here now. And now I can't ever imagine going back to a big city. And
so that's really, it's really grown. You've seen this.
Oh, yes. It's grown so much, not only with the people and the stores, but the small businesses and the students and a real community. And so it's been really nice. And I feel like we've been also blessed that the natives of Shreveport-Bossier, for the most part, have embraced our community and our culture. And, it's always a joke, another Mexican restaurant. Well, people love the food. People eat there, and so it has been a huge change.
And on that note, my final formal question for you is just as someone who's had great success here, as a local business owner, as someone who's kind of seen the evolution of the Hispanic community locally, what are some steps that you feel could be taken to further integrate the Hispanic community into the greater Shreveport-Bossier community?
Well, one of the biggest steps is education. And that's why this scholarship is so important, because we need our community, or we need our sons and daughters, our grandchildren to be a part of this community, not only as small business owners, but as the doctors, as the lawyers, as the councilwomen. We need to be in every aspect of the community so people can know us and know our culture, and we can make a difference. Because you have to think about, when we came from different places, we came here because we wanted to, and we want to be here, and we want to do good, and we want to, make friends and be happy and have a community.
Let me see how to ask you this. It's kind of a hard question, but do you feel like the way you said that and the way that I took it was it's kind of on us, it's our responsibility to go get educated and to take responsibility for our future. But do you feel like there's still barriers locally? Do you feel like the community is welcoming? The non-Hispanic community wants you to succeed and wants to see that happen? Or do you feel like there's still segregation or still barriers to prevent the Hispanic community from becoming stronger and more of a force in this community? Does that make sense, that question?
There's always going to be people with prejudice. That's a sad fact, no matter where. But that's what I'm saying. I think for the most part, most people have been very welcoming of us and our culture and our businesses. And education is very important, but at the same time, just working hard is important. And so my thought is, if you're a child or if you're a student and you want to go to higher education, well, the least we could do is support you financially in that. And so don't get me wrong, I believe in construction workers and I've had great success in construction. And I know education is not the only way. We need tradesmen. We need, welders, mechanics, electrician, plumbers, all licensed. We need them too. And so whatever path someone chooses, I want to make sure that we support them wholeheartedly. But I do, of course, want to see a Hispanic mayor one day. I don't see why not. Or, I just want us to see in all the different aspects of the community, not just the restaurants and construction workers. We have the potential and the ability to do whatever we want, whatever our dreams are. And that's why we're here in the United States. So.
Same. I mean, I feel the same. This podcast wouldn't have survived and wouldn't be here today without the Hispanic community. And I have 1,000,000% respect for the Hispanic community's abilities, expertise, knowledge, and thank goodness they're here. That's all I can say.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, Loreli, those are my set questions today. Is there anything else, like I told you before we started, is there anything else that I didn't ask that you want to share? I'm so in admiration of what your husband and you have built, and we're so lucky to have you in this community.
I think with the way, unfortunately, we are politically right now in the government, there is a lot of immigration enforcement. And, I would just like to ask people what, depending on which side of the fence you're on, just we're regular people. We all have dreams and hopes and love our families and want to work hard and be, positive impact here, and so I just want people to keep that in mind and make sure that when they go out there, as far as my Hispanic people, to represent that. And so that's pretty much it.
Thank you so much for being here, and just keep on doing what you're doing. It's extraordinary and very inspiring. So thanks for making the time to be here, and appreciate you so very much.
Okay, I appreciate you. Thank you.
Absolutely.